Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving headfirst into an entry-level smartphone that is completely disrupting the budget market with specs that frankly seem mathematically impossible. Seriously, when the spec sheet for this device leaked, a lot of people actually thought it was a typo. Today, we're breaking down the Poco C81 Pro.
You know, if someone told you that in 2026 you could get flagship-sounding features for literal pennies, you'd probably roll your eyes, right? As tech reviewers have been pointing out since its release, the Poco C81 Pro makes some massive promises. But hey, as savvy tech enthusiasts, we know that budget phones are all about where the manufacturer decides to cut corners. So we're going to look closely at the data to find out what the real-world trade-offs actually are.
Here's how we're going to break this down today. We'll start with a $99 smartphone anomaly. Move on to the massive visual experience, tackle battery life versus charging, look at the performance and camera realities, and wrap up with our final verdict.
All right, Section 1, the $99 smartphone anomaly. Let's set the baseline and look at exactly what we're dealing with right out of the box following its global release on April 27, 2026.
For a price hovering around $99 or about 120 euros, you get an incredibly solid build. It comes in black, gold, or a striking green color block design. It's got a glass front with a plastic frame and back, but at just 8.2 millimeters thin, it absolutely doesn't feel cheap. It measures about 171 by 79 millimeters and weighs in at a sturdy 208 grams. And under the hood, it's running a 4G LTE network with dual nano SIM capabilities.
Moving right along to Section 2, a massive visual experience. Now, what's really interesting about this device is the front screen. It is undeniably the main attraction here.
The Pro in the name? Yeah, it clearly stands for proportions. This phone features an absolutely massive 6.9-inch IPS LCD display. It gives you roughly an 84.3% screen-to-body ratio. For your media consumption and daily scrolling, you are getting an incredibly large canvas. This is where things get kinda wild. Getting a fluid 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate at this price point is practically unheard of. Typically, sub-$100 phones are totally locked at 60 Hz. It also has a typical brightness of 650 nits, peaking at 800 nits, meaning you can actually see it outdoors. Plus, it brings in premium features like Wet Touch Technology 2.0, so you can accurately swipe with wet hands, alongside 3 TÜV Rheinland certifications to protect your eyes. But hey, there's always a catch, right? To get that buttery smooth 120 Hz movement, you have to settle for a 720p resolution, specifically 720 by 1600 pixels in a 20 by 9 ratio. At a massive 6.9 inches, a pixel density of roughly 254 ppi means text and images can look a bit soft if you're pixel peeping. It's the ultimate trade-off, unparalleled smoothness versus outright sharpness.
Okay, Section 3. Battery life versus charging. This is an area where this phone undeniably excels and honestly leaves a lot of premium flagships in the dust.
The Poco C81 Pro packs an absolute beast of a power source, a 6,000 milliamp hour battery. In a world where most phones hover around 4,500 to 5,000, this is a massive inclusion.
Thanks to that power-efficient 720p screen and the 12nm chip, this battery effortlessly pushes past 2 full days of use. Poco's lab tests simulate 2.37 days of typical usage. And incredibly, it supports 7.5-watt reverse-wired charging. That means this smartphone can literally act as a power bank to charge up your earbuds or smartwatch on the go.
And this brilliantly illustrates the device's biggest hurdle. You get multi-day battery life, absolutely. But because the Type-C charging is capped at just 15 watts, you'll be waiting nearly 3 hours for a full charge from 0 to 100. It's totally a phone designed for overnight charging, but it rewards your patience with days of endurance.
Jumping into Section 4, Performance and Camera Realities. Let's look at the internals to see how this hardware handles the daily grind. So the 64-bit octa-core Unisoc T7 processor is paired with a Mali G57 GPU. It comes with 4 GB of base RAM and your choice of 64, 128, or 256 GB of snappy UFS 2.2 storage. This makes daily swiping, messaging, and web browsing perfectly smooth. Just keep your expectations grounded. Heavy 3D games are definitely going to need to stay on low settings. It's a casual king, not a gaming rig.
What really makes the performance pop is Xiaomi's HyperOS 3, which is built on Android 15. You get Google's Gemini AI and Circle to Search directly in the budget tier. But the biggest shocker? Poco is promising up to 4 major Android upgrades and 48 months of software optimization. That means this budget phone is quite literally built to last you for years.
As for the optics, things are super straightforward here. You get a single 13-megapixel camera on the back with an f2.2 aperture, an LED flash, and HDR. Up front, there's an 8-megapixel selfie shooter. Both the front and back cap out at 1080p video recording at 30 frames per second.
So the crucial point is that while the sensor takes in enough light for really great natural-looking daytime shots, it definitely struggles with noise once the sun goes down. There is a dedicated night mode, but this firmly keeps the phone in the entry-level photography tier. It's fine for a quick social media post, for sure, but it's not a nighttime powerhouse.
But then it totally redeems itself with hardware features that expensive flagships abandoned years ago. You get a dedicated micro SD slot to expand that storage, a classic 3.5mm headphone jack, and even an FM radio. Add in a highly responsive side-mounted fingerprint sensor, Bluetooth 5.2, dual-band Wi-Fi, and NFC for mobile payments in supported regions. I mean, that is an incredibly practical loadout.
Finally, Section 5, the final verdict. As we wrap up this explainer, we really have to look at the entire spec sheet to determine the true value of the Poco C81 Pro.
With this device, you are constantly juxtaposing extreme value against unavoidable entry-level realities. On one hand, you're dropping about $100 for 120Hz display, multi-day 6,000 mAh battery life, and the absolute latest Android 15 software. On the other hand, you're accepting a soft 720p resolution, highly basic cameras, and a battery that requires immense patience to refuel at just 15 watts.
It really is a masterclass in giving you exactly what you need for daily tasks, and absolutely nothing you don't. So I'll leave you with this final thought to consider based on your own tech habits. Is that unbelievable battery life and ultra-smooth screen worth the trade-offs in charging speed and camera fidelity? Would you make the Poco C81 Pro your next daily driver, or maybe even your backup phone? Think about it, and keep exploring the amazing shifts happening right now in the budget tech world.